You have such a fascinating story, and I would love it if you could just tell us. You left home when you were, I think, 5 years old. And what happened? Where did you go?
I was born in South Sudan, what is now South Sudan, and in the 1980s, the whole area was a battleground between the rebels from the south of Sudan and the government of Sudan. And our villages were being burned down, and towns were being destroyed, and we had nowhere to go. Most of the young boys were targeted, so we had to escape our homes and our villages and leave our families, and we walked toward Ethiopia.
And were you able to connect with your parents after that?
No, I was not. I was not. So once we reached Ethiopia, we stayed there for about 2 or 3 years at the refugee camp there. And then that country started having their own problems in the 1992, 1991. But in terms of talking with them, I could not talk to them.
So you went back to the village you left?
No, we did not reach all the way back to the village. We just came barely into southern Sudan, and we realized that it was not safe. So we were directed toward Ethiopia, toward the south of southern Sudan, and that's where we walked toward Ethiopia, toward Kenya.
What did you do with your time when you were in these camps?
So when we first came there were no facilities, there were no building, but the condition allowed for us to take classes under trees. It never rained. The weather was allowed us to do so. So for the first 3 years of school, I was under a tree taking notes, and we were being taught. I think my class had about 70 people, and all of us ranged in age from, like me at the time, maybe 11 years old, to people that were 20-something.
Wow.
In first grade.
And everybody was in the same class together?
Everybody was in the same class. Everybody wanted to learn.
Everyone wanted to learn.
My family were farmers in southern Sudan, and they never had a chance to go to school. But this idea was just reinforced in our mind at the refugee camp that to be successful in the future, when you do go back home, if you do, education would be what you will make a living on. And so all of us really put all the effort into studying hard, and even though the condition was really bad.
What were your expectations when you were young?
When we first came there, we were just hopeful that hopefully the war in Sudan was going to end sometime soon, and we would be able to go back home and see our relatives, see my family. But as time wore on, it was obvious that the war was not ending. So after 6-7 years, life had become sort of difficult and sort of becoming hopeless. And we started thinking about maybe thinking about going abroad, maybe to the U.S. or to Australia, to other countries that were accepting refugees.
So I understand you applied for refugee status and eventually learned that you would be resettled to the United States. What was that like? What was it like finding out you'd be coming to the United States?
It was a dream come true because we had heard of the United States before. We had seen those films, and it was just always a dream in the back of your mind that hopefully you could go there. But it never sunk in. So when we were, I think 1998, 1999, the U.S. government decided to resettle some of the lost boys of Sudan. And so the whole idea picked up in the refugee camp, and we signed up, all of us. The process took about 2 or 3 years. And by the time it came to the interviews, we really knew that it was happening.
So you arrived, and what were your hopes? What did you want to do when you arrived in America? You had been studying, and I gather from the path that you've taken that you wanted to continue studying. But what did you hope for when you arrived here?
I wanted to make a living, be able to go to school, be able to make a name for myself, be able to support myself and my family. That is what we had all longed for at the refugee camp.
You had been fleeing violence and war. You were staying in a camp, but when you moved to America, did you feel safe? Did you feel like you lived in a place where you didn't have to worry about your security?
Oh yes, definitely, definitely. It was a 180-degree turn because at the refugee camp there was no security of anything. We did not know how long we would be at that refugee camp, and even back in Sudan it was worse because we were always hearing gunfire when we were walking from place to place, to Ethiopia.
So we're talking today because you are now a Foreign Service officer. As you go through this new career, what do you hope your mark will be?
I want to be able to use my experience from being a refugee, from being somebody who understands the important role that the United States plays in the world, be someone that can contribute to solid policy and to solid solution around the world. I think my experience from the refugee camp, I did not know that the education that I was doing at the refugee camp was important. I did not know that taking class under the tree. I did not see the end goal, but I think I persevered, and I just hope that that I need to dedicate that time to hopefully one day produce something important. So I hope to inspire other people that may not see a clear path forward to their dream, and be persistent in their dreams, and things will work out. Things will take care of themselves.